I don't even know where to start. I still feel as though I haven't woken up from some bizarre dream. However, let's get started. My name is Lynn. I'm 29 years old, and I've been married to 32-year-old Vin, who I believe to be my true love. It was at college that we first met. He was a tall, self-assured engineering student who always seemed to be the center of attention in a crowd. I majored in English literature, was more reserved, and found comfort in poetry and books. I never imagined that a person like him would ever take notice of me. However, he did. At least that's what I thought. We spent 5 years together. At first, our relationship was like a lovely song, with lots of harmony and occasional off notes, but nevertheless, music. He remembered the small things, was considerate, and always held my hand in public. He took me to Dalat for my 25th birthday. He went down in the chilly grass and made a proposal when we were sitting by the lake, fog curling around the water's surface. I sobbed. Naturally, I said yes. It was a happy first year of marriage. In District 7, we took up residence in a compact yet comfortable flat. I started teaching literature at a nearby high school, and Vin worked for a bigot business. Despite our lack of wealth, we were happy. I was anyway. However, in year 2, things began to shift. At first, it was subtle. He worked late at first, then later. I cooked dinners that were not consumed. Plans for the weekend were rescheduled. The hugs became courteous gestures rather than full embraces, and the kisses turned into pecks. I attributed it to stress. Perhaps he simply had more on his plate, but he was always ambitious. Then the absences appeared, unaccounted for hours, inexplicable evenings, spent with colleagues. The biggest warning sign was that he had changed the password on his phone. I'm not proud of this, but I took his thumb and unlocked his phone one night while he was sleeping. My heart was beating so rapidly that I was afraid it may reveal who I was. There was nothing at first, just a few messages with pals, work emails, and memes. Just as I was ready to stop, I came upon an old conversation with the title, My Sunshine. Mai was the woman with whom it was. Her name was unfamiliar to me, but the message is God. I can't get last night out of my head. I can still smell you on my skin. When will I be able to see you again? I long for your touch. When all I want is to be wrapped in you. I hate sleeping next to her. The room spun around in my mind. I was having trouble breathing. I felt as though a metal bat had been thrown into my chest. I hurried to the restroom and puked. At that moment, I wanted to scream, to rouse him up, to face him. However, I didn't. Curling up on the edge of the bed as far away from him as possible, I crawled back into bed and stared at the ceiling till the curtains were lit by the morning light. The weeks that followed were a blur. I acted as though nothing was wrong. I made dinner, gave him a kiss, and grinned, but I was hollow on the inside. I began to compile information gradually. I looked up his location history and began to follow him remotely after he claimed to have business meetings. That's when I first noticed her. In the Instagram perfect sense, she was stunning. Fair skin, long black hair, and a constant need for heels. As she laughed and put her palm on his cheek, I watched from my motorcycle as she gave him a hug outside her apartment. With her, he seemed so vibrant, very different from the calm, aloof man I lived with. I was ripped apart by it. I was unable to confront him, though. I wasn't prepared. Rather, the first made a plan. This is where things start to get really twisted. You see, he betrayed others besides myself. She was no innocent girl trapped in a love affair. No, she was aware of his marriage. Even worse, she rejoiced in it. I came across her Instagram. She wasn't hiding, though. As her bio stated, homewrecker but make it fashion. She felt proud. And that made me angry in a manner I didn't realize I was capable of. I required assistance. I thus sought out someone from Vin's past. which is something I never would have imagined doing. Trang, his former girlfriend. Before he met me, they had been dating for 3 years. She had always struck me as resentful, perhaps even a touch obsessed. However, she responded right away when I messaged her. "You took too long." In Bin Then, we met at a cafe. Despite her grace and composure, she had fire in her eyes. The things she told me made my skin crawl. That Vin had regularly cheated on her, lied while grinning, and deceived her into believing she was the issue. He was now treating me in the same way. We made the decision to work together. I had no idea that I would be friends with my husband's ex. However, suffering has a way of creating improbable partnerships. We began to learn as much as we could about Mai's life. It turns out that she was more than just a gorgeous face. She was also vengeful, manipulative, and, predictably, involved in extramarital affairs. I didn't miss the irony. My cheating husband's mistress was cheating on him. If it hadn't given me the impression that my whole marriage had been a farce, it would have been amusing. But I had stopped sobbing. No, I was concentrating now. Sharp. I wasn't going to abandon him. I would see to it that he felt it. I took notes on everything. Voice notes, screenshots, and images. Even our living room now has a hidden camera that I installed. The last component? I have to persuade them to come together. I accompanied him to a downtown hotel one Friday evening. He greeted Mai at the door, and I watched from the other side of the street. They shared a kiss. Like a gentleman, he carried her bag. Then they entered. I waited for 2 hours. Then I entered. I had used a fictitious name to reserve the room next to theirs. Through the partition, I could hear them. I'm laughing, groaning, and I captured it all on tape. That night, I hardly slept at all. The tiny wall that separated me from the folks who had gutted me like a fish was there as I lay in the hotel room next to theirs. Every chuckle, murmur, and gentle groan was a new blade that twisted more. Sure, I had the tape, but the noises, they will always haunt me. I departed ahead of them. I couldn't bear to watch them leave hand in hand, beaming and sharing their stolen intimacy. I arrived home before dawn, spent what seemed like hours in the shower, and scrubbed until my skin burned in an attempt to remove the dirt I hadn't even touched. However, the treachery, it became stuck. The days that followed were calm, too silent. I stayed away from him. He didn't appear to be aware. Perhaps he was too engrossed in his fantasy to give a damn. He would hum while he dressed for work, smiling at his phone and sending endless texts. I believed that smile to be mine. It no longer was. I went to the guest room to sleep. I told him I had a cough and didn't want him to get sick, or that I had some grading to catch up on. He purchased it. Or perhaps he simply didn't inquire, since he suspected something wasn't right. I wasn't going to shout, though. Not quite yet. This was supposed to burn. Slowly. I gave Trang another call. This time, we met at a rooftop cafe. With quiet acoustic music playing in the background and sparkling lights, it's the type of spot where couples go on dates. With her was a big folder that had screenshots, receipts, and a detailed chronology of Vin's extramarital encounters during their time together. The man had a history of cheating, not even adept at concealing it. He repeated the same phrases, the identical presence, even the same locations. I wasn't unique. I wasn't unique. We weren't. He used us like jigsaw pieces to fill in whatever emotional void he required. He's not going to stop, Trang replied, staring me in the eyes. Not until he's fully revealed. She was correct. All the ammunition was mine. It was time to put it to work. One started by sending Vin's boss the anonymous evidence. The images, screenshots, and a brief message. Your senior developer has been conducting multiple extramarital affairs using company resources and during company hours. Thought you'd want to know where your budget is going. He was demoted, yet he kept his job. A large one. He was shaken by it. slamming his laptop and shouting about office politics and how his boss was a jealous jerk. He came home furious. I nodded while eating in silence across from him. I was grinning within. I then looked at this section. I was in love. She had a boyfriend, I discovered. In fact, a long-distance fiancé. Kwang was his name. After 6 months of engagement, they intended to tie the knot as soon as he returned from Canada. I messaged him on Facebook with the following straightforward message: "You deserve to know the woman you're marrying." I forwarded the recordings to him, the screen grabs, images of her and Vin together, receipts from hotels, everything. 4 hours later, he responded, "Thank you. I don't know how to process this, but I know I won't marry her." I felt no remorse. Not by any means. I quickly retaliated. She must have realized it was me because I got a text from an unidentified number the following day. "You think you've won? You're pathetic. He never loved you. That's why he came to me." I felt my heart sink for a moment. Then I burst out laughing. I learned everything I needed to know from that message. She was threatened, not the self-assured mistress she feigned. She was upset because I had taken something from her. I responded by sending a photo of her and Vin at the hotel, complete with a timestamp. The irony is that I assumed you were doing that behind your fiancé's back. I was barred by her. Then Vin began to fall apart. He stopped going out at night and came home grumpy and reclusive. He would say, "Fine," when I inquired how his work was doing. Perhaps because Mai had interrupted. Perhaps because work was observing him more intently, or perhaps just possibly he sensed the walls closing in. Then came the night. He made an attempt to get back in touch. On either side of the couch, we were seated. I was, or pretended to be, grading papers. Abruptly, he turned to face me and exclaimed, "Lynn, are you still in love with me?" My heart pounded as I gazed at him. I briefly considered screaming and hurling everything in his face. Instead, I smiled as softly as I could and replied, "Of course." He appeared relieved, nearly moved. I let him lean in and kiss me. I felt nothing, but his lips were familiar. Not a spark, no affection. The simple fact that I wasn't worthy of this man. I packed my belongings as he slept that night. Just enough, not everything. A bag, my papers, the hard drive with all of my proof. I gave him a final glance as I stood in our bedroom doorway. I refrained from crying. With a sticky note that said, "Now you can be with her," I placed the divorce papers on the kitchen counter. "Do not give me a call." For a few days, as I searched for a new place, I moved into Trang's spare room. She gave me Netflix, wine, and chocolate as a welcome gift. We laughed about it all, and I felt something for the first time in months. Illumination. The tale wasn't finished, though. Vin arrived at my new flat a week later. He found the address, although I'm not sure how he accomplished it. He was in tears. I'm crying, really. He knelt at my door and said, "Please, Lynn, don't leave me. I made a mistake. I broke up with her. It had no significance. You are my spouse." One silently stood there and watched him fall apart. "No, Vin," I replied. "You didn't simply make a mistake. You ruined all we owned. Furthermore, I have no sympathy for you." In front of him, I shut the door. And that ought to have been the conclusion. It ought to have. However, a week later, I received an email that would completely alter my life once more. It came from me. Subject: Are you looking for the truth? I froze when I saw Mai's name in my inbox. For what seemed like an eternity, I gazed at the television. My breath was shallow, and my heart was thumping hard in my chest. I didn't think she would get in touch with me again after everything she had done, including the smug texts, the betrayal, and the smugness. Especially when it sounded like a confession. My fingers were shaking when I clicked it open. Subject: Are you looking for the truth? From my Lynn. I'm sure you despise me. And to be honest, I don't blame you. I didn't write to express regret. That's not my forte. However, you should be aware that Vin is not who you believe him to be. Not even close. We didn't have an affair. It was a game. I was used by him, like he did with you. I too believed that I was the exception. I wasn't. Another woman is present. Lone is her name. For almost a year, they have been dating. She is 25 years old. She is unaware of me or you. After our argument, I searched his phone when he was sleeping and discovered the truth. It was filled with her messages. He has been threatening to marry her. I went up to him. He struck me. That night, I left him. I have nothing to ask of you. I simply believed that you should be aware of the whole truth. The enemy was never you. Before I even responded, I read the message 3 times. My ears started to ring strangely, as if my brain was having trouble processing what my eyes were seeing. Another female? Another year? Did he strike her? I refrained from crying. I refrained from screaming. I simply sat there, still numb. I had a terrible experience with mine, but this was not the haughty mistress's voice that I had pictured. She was a broken woman, similar to me. In his game, we were both pawns. I shut down my laptop and sat for what seemed like hours in silence. I saw Trang again later that evening. I told her everything. The email, the name, make alone. She didn't even appear startled. She sipped her beer and mumbled, "That man is a disease. He stretches himself out as if it were insignificant, as if none of us were actual individuals." We spent the night going through his old social media accounts. Trang even discovered a tagged picture of Veen smiling with a woman who was unquestionably not. My 3 weeks prior, at a cafe by the sea, I remarked, "She looks young. She appears too youthful," Trang continued. I panned in. The picture has the text, "My everything," and a heart emoji in the corner. Lone was that person. Something changed inside of me that night. All the sorrow, all the suffering. Something else rose over it, but it remained. Chilly, sharp. Justice is necessary, not only for me, but also for all the women this man has harmed. I wasn't going to leave in silence. No more. I was able to locate Lone on Facebook. Although her profile image was public, her profile itself was private. The girl from the cafe on the beach was undoubtedly her. Large eyes, a baby face, and floral and soft pink attire. I sent her a message. "Hello, Lone. I apologize for approaching you in this manner. However, I believe we must discuss Vin. His wife is me. Or soon-to-be ex-wife. This is serious. I can provide evidence." No answer. I assumed that she wouldn't respond. Perhaps she believed me to be insane. Or perhaps he had already given her the typical lies. I waited a day. Then she answered, "You're telling lies. Vin is single. He claimed that his previous engagement ended years ago." A heat began to grow in my chest. I have wedding pictures, loan documents for marriage, and recordings of him betraying me. And when he was still living with me, I had screenshots of you with him. My goal is to preserve your life, not to destroy it. It was nearly a whole day before she responded. Then a lengthy message appeared. Her voice had entirely changed. "Oh my gosh, I am at a loss for words." He informed me about his divorce, that his former partner was insane. I was unaware of you, or mine. "Could we talk, please?" The following day, we met at a bubble tea establishment. Lone was a young person, not old enough for such a disaster. She appeared to have gone days without sleep. She was scrolling through the pictures and messages I had brought, her hands shaking. She just simply muttered, "I feel sick." I told her everything, the scandal, the other females, the falsehoods. She sobbed. After that, an unexpected event occurred. She asked if I wanted to accompany her in bringing him down. It was an easy strategy. Brutal. Accurate. Lone would continue to act as if nothing had changed. She would pretend that she was still much in love with him and that she believed his lies. She would collect evidence in the interim, including screenshots, audio recordings, and texts. Everything. I created a master file concurrently. He had cheated on all of the women. All lies. All the evidence. And at the appropriate moment, we would forward it all to all of his acquaintances, his household, his work, his companions, his customers, everyone. He would no longer be able to conceal it. However, something occurred that almost destroyed everything before we could attack. Vin arrived at the flat of Lone, intoxicated, enraged, panicked and whispering. She called me. He's present. The door is being pounded by him. He is yelling. I warned her against opening it. I advised her to contact law enforcement. She did. 20 minutes later, they showed up and took him away. He didn't strike her. He did, however, threaten her. That was sufficient. Lone reported it to the police, and that increased our power even further. The next morning, we detonated the bomb. I used an anonymous email address to send the entire bundle, the testimonials, the pictures, the recordings, everything. Like a grenade, it struck. Vin's employment? Lost. His relatives? Enraged. I received a tearful phone call from his mother, who apologized for the boy she didn't recognize anymore. His social circle? Quiet. Overnight, nearly all of his pals unfollowed him. Mai posted a tale with the straightforward statement, "Karma is real." She is also stunning. It ought to have felt like a win. Perhaps it did. Above all, though, it was a sense of closure. It was similar to finally breathing air that didn't strangle me after leaving a burning building. After we revealed the truth, things happened quickly. Silence did not exist. There is no peace before the storm. Vin's world began to collapse as soon as the emails were sent out, and for once, I wasn't helpless to watch it happen. I was called initially by his company, not HR, his management. They expressed gratitude to me for the thorough proof. They acknowledged that he had previously been suspended for previous grievances. But my proposal? That was the end of it. Within 24 hours, he was fired. Sitting on her floor, Trang and I celebrated with pizza and wine, while our phones lit up with updates from individuals we hardly knew. As it happened, many people had tales about Vin. They had never spoken them aloud. Colleagues, exes. One neighbor even claimed to have witnessed him smuggling girls into the house while I was out visiting relatives. He was a living catastrophe. And at last, he was revealed. His mother's message was the most unexpected. She called me in tears. Her voice was trembling and cracked. She repeatedly said, "I don't know who he's become. I didn't raise him like this. I'm so sorry, Lynn. The finest thing that ever happened to him was you." I was at a loss for words. I just sat there with my heart heavy and my phone glued to my ear. Since it was the most difficult portion, I didn't stop loving him all at once. The revelation of the truth did not cause the love to fade. It broke, slowly, in agony. It shattered completely, piece by piece, like glass under pressure. That love was a phantom by now. One of the memories, something that echoed chilly but once felt warm. I began going to therapy. It was suggested by Trang, who claimed that I needed an objective person to hold the mirror up. She was also correct, because I was still bearing weight that wasn't mine, despite having done everything right, leaving, exposing him, and protecting others. Shame. Disgrace. How could you not see it? Said the voice in my thoughts. However, I discovered in therapy that being betrayed does not imply that you are stupid. It's not a weakness to trust someone. You didn't deserve what occurred just because you were good. I was saved by those words. A knock on my door came a few weeks later. Lone was the one. Her eyes were bright, but she appeared exhausted. A silent power. We spent some time sipping tea in solitude while seated on the couch. Then she said something that will always stick in my memory. I no longer wish to bear his ghost. That had a profound effect, because neither did I. We discussed the harm, the deception. Long after the man has passed away, the lies continue to cling to your ribs. We spoke as if we were sisters, not victims, not lovers, survivors. She informed me that she had resumed her writing. Poetry claimed it was beneficial. I informed her that I had resumed writing and painting. That was also helpful. Later, I even got in touch. A brief but sincere message. I appreciate you being honest with me. I wish you tranquility. I said the same to her, not in the conventional sense of the word. It was closure, though, and that can be more potent at times. I saw him one evening as I was making my way home following a late supper with Trang. Veen. He was smoking while lounging on the curb outside a convenience shop by himself. He appeared to have hollow eyes. He had a slimmer face, as if all the luster had been removed. He noticed me. For a long moment, we looked at one another. He started to say something, but I turned and left. Not with malice. Not because I'm afraid, as he was no longer important. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. With firm hands, I signed the last documents. Don't cry. Just take a long, peaceful breath. When you finally put something heavy down, you take that kind of step. I had a party hosted by Trang. Congratulations on losing 180 lbs of dead weight, she wrote on a cake. We sobbed because we laughed so much. I relocated to a different apartment, little, peaceful, and teeming with vegetation and sunlight. The walls were painted by me. I purchased a feline, gave her the name Phoenix. Adapting, I resumed my running. Initially, only a few blocks, then more. I felt as though I was regaining a part of myself with every mile. People ask me if I still think that love exists. Yes, I do. Not the kind that causes blindness, though. Not the sort that makes you into a little person merely to hold you. Truth, honoring love is what I believe in. The kind of love that doesn't falter in the face of adversity, shows up, and remains truthful. For now, I'm conserving room for that love. And in the meantime, I love myself more than anyone else has. I now realize the true meaning of the adage that healing isn't linear. I feel like I've climbed a mountain on some mornings, inhaling in the fresh air of my own existence, free and light. Something reminds me of the girl I used to be, whether it's a song, a smell, or a random picture in the incorrect folder. The girl who pleaded for affection made do with scraps and called it home. What's different today, though? I don't remain there. I no longer lose myself in those memories. I go to them like I've been to old towns before, places that influenced me, but never merited me. I went to Dalat by myself a few months after the divorce. Quietness was what I needed. Silence. Something he had not touched. I brought a little sketchbook, penned notes I never intended to send, and mostly ignored my phone. I went on a sunrise hike to a mountaintop one morning. The mist was swirling about me, and the air was cool and gentle like breath. I watched for a long time as the first rays of light appeared in the sky while I stood with my arms folded. I also forgot about Vin for the first time in a long time. I considered myself. I reflected about how I stayed, the manner in which I battled, the manner that despite it having been torn away, twisted, and burned, I was still able to find love within myself. I didn't simply forgive myself that morning. I respected myself. Vin, like people, unless they choose to, they don't change, and the majority of them never do. But the women they shatter, they undervalue the women, we change. Lone launched a blog. She is writing writings about self-worth and emotional trauma. My mom started a small home bakery, and every time she shares a photo of one of her cakes, her face has a sparkle to it that you wouldn't have noticed months before. Trang, she is creating a virtual support system for women who have departed from unhealthy partnerships. She invited me to speak there. Yes, I replied, because there was significance in our suffering. It wasn't only for pain. It was more than just survival. It was the beginning of a bigger thing. A woman I didn't know sent me a message one evening, perhaps a year after everything went south. Tao was her name. She stated, "I realize this may sound odd, but a friend of a friend told me about your tale. I believe I'm seeing someone similar to your ex. I had the guts to go because of your strength. I simply wanted to express my gratitude." Reading that made me cry, not because I was depressed, but because I understood that I had become a living example of the possibility of healing for someone else. And that, no justice, no retribution, and no perfect closure could ever provide you with that kind of full circle. So here I am, still recovering. I'm still learning, but no more hiding, no more shrinking. I will no longer sit in silence and let someone else create my tale. This is my life, my reality, my liberty. Let me express what I wish someone had told me. If you're reading this and have ever been shattered, betrayed, or made to feel inferior by someone who didn't understand your value, you are not foolish for having faith. Staying too long does not make you weak, and you're not the only one who has left. Heartbreak is not the end of life. After the fire, there is light. We are occasionally compelled to burn it to the ground before rising. And when do we get up? We're fierce. We are complete. We have a new birth.